Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Career Services installment of Discover Your Path. Today, we are talking with Priya Lantz, who is a 2013 ITAM graduate. Her specialization was Web and Database Administration, and she is currently in the Northwest, but right after college, she did take a job with Intel in Phoenix, Arizona, where she was a SQL administrator there. And now she is with Nordstrom as a project manager and program manager. And prior to that, she did some software engineering at Nordstrom as well. So if you want to follow up with Priya, you can by using her LinkedIn, which we will have in the description. And without further ado, welcome, Priya. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with me and other CWU students.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. And I guess the first question that I have is, how did you actually get your job? And if there was any networking involved with that, feel free to explain that. But basically, how did you go from college to career, right after Central? What happened?
Yeah. So right after Central, I think one of the bigger things that I've done is I've applied rigorously to like a million jobs in a day. Aside from that, I also worked with a recruiting company called Tech Systems. They helped me kind of figure out and land a job. But as I was doing that tech system process, as I was applying for some of these things, Intel was one of the places that I've applied. And it was basically just looking at LinkedIn jobs, to be honest, finding that job that I thought would fit my current skill set, things that I was interested in and things that I was passionate about. And so I went ahead, applied, got that job at Intel, moved to Arizona. And about a year into Arizona, I, at that time, was engaged and about to get married. And so I decided with my family, everybody back at home, I want to move back to home. That's when I reconnected with my contact at Tech Systems and said, hey, I'm working on moving back. Can you help me figure out some projects and land some? And so this kind of like two parallel paths that I was taking. One was I wanted to, some additional help. I think it's never a bad idea to ask for additional help. So I definitely, when I'm looking for jobs, that's something that I always do, have someone else also look for me. So I did, have that contact in Tech System looking, and then I would also explore on my own as well within LinkedIn, get hired and things like that. So Tech Systems contact, actually, they reached out to me and they said, hey, Priya, we have a software engineering job within Nordstrom. It has absolutely nothing to do with what you're doing right now, like zero transference. However, the core skills that you use today are applicable to this position. A lot of what you do today is you can apply to that and you can learn from it. And to be honest, I was really scared and nervous because what I was doing in Arizona was database administration, and SQL was my thing, and I knew about it, I was familiar with it, I was good at it. Whereas my new role at Nordstrom had to do with middleware, which is like an alien to me. I've never done it before. I didn't even know what middleware is when people were talking to me about this job. But I kind of was like, you know what do I have to lose? I have a professional that does job finding for a living saying that my skill set applies. So let's just go ahead and give it a shot. And so I really just went to the interview to give it a shot, learn more about the team, learn more about the company too, because when you think Nordstrom, you don't think technology, you typically tend to think just retail. And so I wanted to learn about the company as well. So I went in for an interview. The team was impressed and they were like, we're going to offer you a contracting position. So took it as a contract. And I believe in 3 to 6 months, I got an offer for a full-time position. So I went ahead, and by that point, I kind of knew what that job was. I knew what I needed to do, what the role is within the company. And so I went ahead and took that role. And I stayed in that role for about 2 years total. At this point, I felt like I knew enough about, what I liked and what I didn't like about software engineering. And this is a part of my process as well. Even when I was doing a lot of my studies within Central, I knew a big thing that I wanted to work with, like down the road, was I wanted to work with people and not just technology. And that's actually one of the main reasons I chose the ITEM field of study rather than computer science. Because ITEM kind of provided that knowledge on how do you work with people, leadership, business, and such.
Right.
So at this point, I said, okay, I've been in my engineering role. I've done the tech roles for about 3 years total now, with counting Intel. I kind of want to start to move on and out of it. And that's when I started networking within Nordstrom and just started talking to different people, different roles. I knew I wanted to go into program management. And so I kind of built that base and attended like WIT regattas, women in tech regattas, things like that, to really just talk with people and network. And one day, my manager at that team had said, "Hey, Priya, I know this is a role that you want to go into. I think you'd be great for it. There is this gift card team that's looking for a program manager. Are you interested?" And so that's when I said, hell yeah. So I went ahead and applied for that role, chatted with that manager, worked before I took on that role, kind of poked around the team, kind of get an understanding of the team. What is that organizational structure going to look like? Got the job, and I am now with Gift Card for over a year now. It's over a year and a half, I feel like. Now, along with Gift Card team, I also program manage the loyalty team, and have also taken on responsibilities for leading a few other projects. So I think that's kind of my career growth in the process on how I transitioned from a tech role or student to tech role to program management, and who knows where I'll go down the road.
Right. Oh, that's great. You actually covered a lot of information there and very
Mhm.
relevant. So I'm going to jump to a question that relates to what students can be doing now, like outside of the classroom, as you reflect
Mhm.
back on to when you were a student and the majority of things that you did were going to class and getting your degree. But you also did a number of internships. So what advice do you have for students on how they can be preparing to become competitive for their eventual job search by doing
Yeah.
things in addition to going to class and getting their degree? What advice would you have for them?
I would definitely say internships are a great spot for it. They give you the experience of what real world looks like, and they also give you like understanding of what your gaps are and what is your knowledge bridge that you need to build to be really ready for your position down the road. So I would say, if you have that opportunity, definitely work on those internships. Go ahead and pursue them. Other
And
things
how
I
did
would
you,
also say,
by
go
the
ahead.
way, where did you intern? I believe you did two, and how did you find those internships?
I actually only did one, and I did it at Packard. So
Mhm.
Packard was one that I did for one summer, and that was another software engineering role. And it was one of those things where I kind of just massively applied to a bunch of different places. And then I did, after my internship with Packard and after I graduated from Central, I had a temporary position at BECU. That one, even though it was a temporary role, I kind of still think of it more of as an internship, because it is still like, it was only a month long, and it was more on the web development part of that. My major was web and database, so that was more triggered towards the website portions of it. So I actually helped build their new BECU website, or it was new 7 years ago. So
Right. Well, one of the things that's important about a temporary job is that you still can put it on your resume, like I have a job. I am currently working at BECU doing this. And
yeah,
one of the most important things to have when you're looking for a job is a job, because it shows that you're already hireable. So I think the other
exactly.
part I was mistakenly thinking of as an internship is you worked at the service desk, or you did something with
Mhm.
our IT services.
Yep. Yep. And that was my student employment. That is definitely the other thing as well. As part of your career at Central, right? I still think education is also a career of its own. It's good to kind of take a look at what is your major that you're trying to do, and is there any positions that relate to that major that can help you get that foot in the door. And I think that was very beneficial too, is, I had some of that tech experience working within Central. And I also was able to kind of see what are the common problems. And I was able to use that even in my role in Intel. Was part of my role in Intel, even though prominently it was SQL administrator, I was also like an IS administrator as well. So that also kind of traveled a little bit, not super deep, but it's still just knowing that. I think it helps when companies see that, hey, you are a IT major and you have a student employment that kind of reflects along that same lines, and you have additional internships that you're doing that kind of shows that you are passionate in this role, that you're really strongly pursuing it, and you are also learning skill set not only from the classroom but outside of your classroom that is applicable to your resume.
Sure.
One other thing I would say is also like make sure you network. As my last year at Central, I did a lot of networking as part of it. So I actually flew out to Oregon to meet like some VPs of Kaiser actually, to kind of see, hey, do you have a potential internship? Can I, do you have a potential entry level position I can work on? And really my networking started like from my dad. It was like, Dad, who do you know? You're in IT. Who do you know? Who can I bug? Who can I follow around? Who can I shadow? And then it kind of just, they say you're 7 handshakes from any one person, and you kind of just have to follow those handshakes down the road and see where it leads.
All right, very good. Well, there's a saying that says the resume gets you the interview and the interview gets you the job. So can you talk a little bit about how much prep you put into your resume and if that paid off? And then what interview tips or what interview success did you have and maybe why?
Mhm. I would say I spent a lot of time into my resume. I feel like we went through 3 or 4 revisions, maybe even more than that. And I still remember coming into the Career Center with my initial resume and everything was just in red. You're like, nope, nope, not this, not this. And I remember just going back defeated, but looking at it and be like, okay, I can make this work, make it better. And so we had a lot of revisions that went back and forth. So definitely my resume was not done overnight. It was something that I put my heart and soul into it. And I think one of the bigger things, advices that you gave me was like, make sure you show your personality through your resume as well. Just because it's a resume doesn't mean it has to be flat and dry. How is this, like when it looks at you, how does it stand out and how does it relate to you? So definitely something I worked on, quite hard. And to be honest, to this day, I still use that similar template. I think it's like applicable. So anytime I feel like, oh, I need to, when I was looking for a job as I was moving out of Intel, I updated that same template, make sure it was more relevant, added all the details in there, and then I went ahead and used that to apply. And I think people kind of find that in there. People can see that you put that effort into that resume, and it shows them that you actually care about the position that you're applying for, and you're not just applying for the sake of application.
Yeah.
In terms of interviews, I have had some great ones and I've had some really bad ones. I think one thing that we should always be keeping in mind is just because you have one bad interview doesn't mean that you're defeated. You kind of have to just pick yourself back up and apply more. I actually went through an interview with Amazon. It was like a whole day interview, and I could not even answer the most basic questions. I mean, it was one of those days where people are like, "How old are you?" or something. They can't ask you that in an interview. But I'm just saying, if you were to have asked me, "How old are you?" I would have been like, "Oh my gosh, I have no idea." Um, but yeah, they were asking me some really basic things that I should have known, and I just completely blanked and I completely botched it. And I came out and I was just like, "Oh my god, I am not getting that job." Like I don't even need to hear back from them. I know I'm not. At the same time, I've had interviews, whereas with Intel that I did, where I applied, and they just were able to really get a sense of my personality and get a sense of who I am and kind of feel my passion across, like even though it was a phone interview, and they were able to do it. And I think part of that big thing is Amazon was one of my first few interviews. So I was really nervous and I was really just like, oh my gosh. Whereas with with Intel, by this time, I've applied to like 100 jobs. I haven't heard back from any of them.
Mm.
It was one of these like, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? I've already got rejected so many times, whatever. If I get rejected, I still live. I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I did kind of go in with that attitude of what is the worst that's going to happen? And I just kind of gave it my best. It's also important to realize that as you're interviewing people, like they understand that you're nervous. Like right today, I do interview a lot of engineer ones in my role, and I'll take on any interviews for internships or even hire days. I am highly involved in that, and so I get it. I was in your shoes, so I know you're nervous. So don't get caught up like in the beginning when they say introduce yourself and you kind of stumble. Like don't get caught up by it. Just go with the flow, see where it goes, take it as a conversation. And if you don't know something, tell them you don't know, and say, I don't know, I can find out. That's my I
Sure.
think that's something that's very impressive.
There was something that you had mentioned to me before about an employer who said something along the lines of, we could see in your interview, you were something about passionate about something came through. Can you talk about that again?
Yeah, it was actually my interview with Intel. After I got the position, I had asked, why did you hire me? What kind of set me apart from the other interviews that you did? And the response I got back was, one, the resume caught their eye, and they could see the amount of effort I put into that resume. And that was an indicator that I'm hardworking and I'm not kind of like a person that does sloppy work.
Yeah.
And the other things was, as they were talking to me about my resume, it was very evident that I knew what I was talking about. Even though they were just asking me things about what was your internship, what did you learn, what's your favorite, book, or what are you reading today, or like, even though there were very basic questions, they it was more of a personality check that they really enjoyed. And as I was talking about some of my works that I've done, my internships, why did I choose ITM instead of computer science, or et cetera, et cetera, the answers that I gave were confident. Um, like, yes, they were nervous, but the answer that I did provide was from my heart, and it wasn't just something I was reading. I think interviewers they kind of get tired of hearing that same answer over and over again. What's your strength and what's your weakness? And you kind of have that, you Google that, it's like one of the most common questions that are being asked. Although you prepare for it, you can tell when it's the generic answer that's being given to you versus did you actually feel like you self-evaluated and you've actually identified those things. And I think that's what it is.
Hmm.
And the other thing I said is I believe they asked me a question. I did say I don't know. I said, I honestly don't know the answer to that, but give me 10 minutes in Google and I will find that out for you and I can give you what you need.
Right.
So just showing that grit and passion and confidence that you can learn is something that's very relevant, especially to a person entering the work field newly. So
Sure.
that would be my.
It made me think about your first interview with Amazon where you said you didn't do well at all. Do you think
Mhm.
if you had practiced, if you had done mock interviews with your parents or friends or career services, do you think there's a value in practicing and just getting used to answering, even if they're simple questions, just to get in the mindset of talking about yourself in a knowledgeable and confident way? Do you think you would have done better in your first interview if you had done a lot of mock interviews to just rehearse?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think that definitely could have helped. But I will say it will only help if you take those mock interviews seriously. So you actually have to treat them as if you are going for a real interview so that you can be preparing for that regard. I definitely think it would have helped me if I had done all those mock interviews, work with my parents, work with career services. I think it was just one of those things where I didn't quite think of it at that time, But by the time I got to the Intel ones, I had so much real life experience just interviewing.
Right.
That was my experience. And, I kind of, so you can definitely tell from my first interview to my last one, you could see the growth in how you interview. And definitely mock interviews. I think if it's a service that's available, take all the advantage of it as you possibly can.
Sure. Okay. Well, just a couple more questions here. And one of them is, you've talked before about soft skills, and
Mhm.
that's sort of how I'll preface this question is, what's the importance of soft skills? And just generally speaking, what do you see that the industry needs? And I know the industry is diverse. When I say the industry, I mean just the workforce in general. So if you want to be a nurse, you need a nursing degree. If you want to be a software, if you want to be a coder, you need coding experience. There obviously are areas where you need specific skills. But can you talk about the value of soft skills? And in your case, now you're in program management. So maybe the value of soft skills early in your career and now, and even just in general.
hmm Yeah, I think soft skills are a huge plus to have. Something that I've heard, and I actually say this when I'm interviewing or trying to talk about candidates between like the group of interviewers, right, is you can teach anybody technical skills or hard skills, right? I can teach you how to tie a bow. I can do all this. But if you are a really, really bad with soft skills and your personality is just not going to work with others, that is something that we cannot change. It's not something that's teachable to you at a certain point in time. So, soft skills, the sooner you can kind of start learning them, the better it is. And with my experience with ITEM major is a lot of the classes that we've done were kind of revolved around those softer skills, and it kind of really helps you understand, okay, where is it that I'm lacking? It kind of gives you that school experience on how you can make that better, and you have all these resources that are there to help you gain those. Whereas once you enter the work field, you're not going to get a lot of opportunity where people are going to sit there and teach you, hey, this is what you need to change. And so I think it's really important, especially in, when I went from student to engineer, one of the things that my Intel hiring manager said was, your soft skills was great. I have lots of people that know technical, but they are absolutely miserable when I have to put them in front of a senior vice president to present. Even though you're a junior engineer, I feel more confident having you present than somebody else. And that says
Right.
something, right? I think, especially in the field of technology, that's a little bit of a lacking experience that it's slowly changing. And
Yeah.
then changing to what I do right now, a lot of every single day, what I do is people work, and there's a lot of soft skills involved in it. And so for me, I need to, as I'm in a meeting, like one of the few things I do is quickly evaluate who's in the meetings, what kind of personality is this, how do I communicate with you? Some people I have to butter you up and talk about how your day is and how are your kids, and some people I need to get straight to the point. And especially when it comes to a lot of my job right now is like pushing back on other people and managing the work that comes to the team. So how do you do it and still maintain a good working relationship with others? So it's very, very crucial to my role. And so I rely on all of my soft skills every single day. And if I did not have good soft skills, I can assure you that I would not be having this job for much longer. But luckily, it's one of my strong sets. So I think, I'm all right. But yeah, very,
Yeah.
very important.
Oh, that's great to hear. And I imagine you do well in all aspects of your job. I think you're very well rounded. So congratulations on being able to do that and do that effectively. Do you have any overall advice for students that we haven't already covered in any of the questions that you want to make sure students are aware of?
Um, I think we have covered most of it, but I will like to just repeat is, don't be afraid of failure. It comes and goes. It is just the way of life. You will get frustrated when you're applying for jobs. You can sit there applying for like 30 jobs per day, and I remember I would apply for jobs, and it wasn't until a year later I would get a response back saying, "We're sorry, we don't think we're gonna explore you as an option for this hire." And that was, a year after I applied. And it can get discouraging. So I would just say, don't get discouraged by that. Keep trying, have that passion, and go out for it. And don't be afraid to network and reach out to people, like message people on LinkedIn. Go ahead and see if there's any like workshops that you can attend. I know with the current environment as it is, I think it's really important to understand that it may seem a little dark. Companies are all across the world are going through cuts and, job losses and things like that. So this is a time where, especially for new seniors, you kind of may be in a position where you're like, well, I'm graduated, but I don't know what I'm going to do, because one, companies may not be hiring, and two, just with the way environment is, you may not want to risk yourself to go into the job, like, be physically present somewhere. But again, there's like lots of opportunities for virtual interviews, to do virtual meetings, to like, just keeping your skill sets still sharp, so that when that opportunity does come, you can say, I wasn't kind of just sitting around doing nothing for the last 6 months or however long. These are all the things that I've done in this time, to show that you're still passionate, you're still learning, and you're not just kind of like sitting idle. That would be my advice. So don't get, keep trying, and you'll get there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Priya. It's a pleasure to talk to you again and see that you're doing well in your career, and that we have very capable, strong, proud alumni out there in the workforce. And I'm glad you're able to return to the Pacific Northwest instead
Yeah.
of staying down in Arizona. So, well, again, really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy your 3-day weekend, and we will be in touch.